And good afternoon, everyone. It's Angelo Robles. And the afternoon assuming that today, on February 25th, that you're watching and I hope participating live. I do enjoy to do the lives, a little bit more pressure and no edits, but a chance to interact with the audience is always great. Today will be one of my solos, I think a very dynamic and very important one. And I believe something that's going to be a pretty long one. So grab your glass of, in my case today, it's not coffee. I do love coffee, but it's matcha. But hey, if I want to bring back the 70s tang, if I want to harken the 80s Ovaltine, whatever works for you, sit back and enjoy. And I think I'm going to rock your world and have a lot to say that is going to be very scary for some of you. I'm going to call this The Map is Wrong. Rethinking Wealth, Capital, and Purpose in a Post-Scarcity World. Many of you know I did I think, a prominent podcast last week, one of my 5 most watched of all time, with Dr. Alexander Wissner-Gross, one of the leading authorities in AI and co-host of the Moonshots podcast, one of the most popular podcasts in the world, and perhaps AI-centric, the most popular. I have a lot of show notes. I watched it again. I rethought some things in my positions. I have some notes actually right here. So hopefully this won't be too wooden, but I have a lot to talk about. So again, the map is wrong. Rethinking wealth, capital, and purpose in a post-scarcity world. Everyone, I'm Angelo Robles. Welcome to my platforms at Family Office. And for my members of SFO Continuity, a special welcome. So on that note, without further ado, shall we begin? I want to ask you a question that I myself have been struggling with, and I do not have a clean answer to. In my experience, when I'm sitting with what I call principal families, the ones who built the generational wealth, the ones who should, although today's world makes it interesting, be thinking in decades, not in quarters. The questions, I'm sure many of you will agree, the questions without clean answers are the ones worth sitting with. So here it is. What is the purpose of wealth accumulation in a world where scarcity no longer exists? Is that true? What becomes scarce? And what's the timeline that I'm talking about? So this is not per se a philosophical hypothetical. It's a practical question that the wealthiest families in the world are going to need to answer. Whether you created it, you're an inheritor, benefactor, or servicing these families, this is incredibly valuable. You're going to have to answer this not in some distant future, way before a lifetime. And frankly, given everything that we're about to discuss, the word lifetime itself, well, I got some interesting stuff for you. The word lifetime, let's go with longevity itself, is going to absolutely need to be redefined. We're talking about years, but not decades. Maybe a decade at most. So the question is already arriving. And again, I raised it with Dr. Alexander Wissner-Gross. Please go to my YouTube channel. It's there at the top and watch that incredible hour and 7 minutes. One of the world's leading AI authorities alive. And what he said, although I knew it did from his mouth stopped me cold. But I want to give you the economic picture first, because really, to me, it starts with three numbers. One will begin with energy cost, the cost of intelligence, and the cost of physical labor. Right now, all three are foundational inputs to virtually everything in the global economy. Energy powers physical production, intelligence, human expertise, cognitive labor, professional judgment, powers everything knowledge based, and human labor, the physical doing of things, underpins every industry that energy and intelligence alone can't yet run. So I'm assuming we're on the same page there. Make sense? So Wissner-Gross's argument, and I think he's right, is that all three of those costs are heading, I'm not saying we're there yet, are heading towards something close to zero. Energy, through the combination of solar, next generation nuclear, and efficiency in AI, gains in AI drives into these energy systems and what it's going to recreate with fusion and all that upcoming. So, intelligence through AI, the cost of performing an analytical task, drafting a document, making a financial model, executing a legal strategy, it's just collapsing right now in real time. This month in February, the advancements from CDance to the big platforms in AI to OpenClaw, it's been an incredible month. So back to the big ones, labor through robotics. This is probably the one that people underestimate because we associate robots with what? Car factories. But the next generation of robotics, humanoid robots, AI directed physical systems, will do what humans do in warehouses and construction, agriculture, logistics, surgery, warfare, in manufacturing. The cost of physical work is heading to, again, near zero, just as fast as the cost of cognitive work. When all three inputs to the economy approach zero cost somewhat simultaneously, what happens to the economy? No, that's not a rhetorical question. It is the most important economic question of your lifetime. And nobody, of course, has a crystal ball or has a clear answer because, well, this has generally never happened before. So, what we know is the system is not linear. You cannot run, and this is the problem with much of current academia and current economics. You cannot run standard macroeconomic models on what is coming because those models are built on an assumption of scarcity. They were built for a world of scarcity. Labor is scarce, capital is scarce, energy is for sure constrained. Therefore, intelligence is finite. Removing those constraints and the models that they created, that we rely on, that were often wrong anyway, break. So Wissner-Gross mentioned, and maybe my words to some degree putting it to play now, what could happen first in that scenario, I think easily within a decade, it could be hyperdeflation. Prices collapse across most of the economy because the cost of producing almost everything, and this is intriguing, could drop to near zero. Goods, services, information, advice, expertise. Now, here's where it gets interesting. And I have to take out a crystal ball because I don't know. Central banks, the Fed, the ECB, and every major monetary authority. They have an inflation target, typically what, around 2%. If deflation hits hard enough, they do what they always do when they need inflation, circa modern monetary theory. Well, of course, they print. Now, there's going to be a variety of reasons for that. I'm simplifying it. But they print, and they print yet again. The printing response to a deflationary AI shock could be so significant that it effectively, and I'm losing this a little loosely here, but effectively makes like everyone wealthy in nominal terms. What, everyone a millionaire? Man, a billionaire? In the same way that the Zimbabwe hyperinflation made everyone a trillionaire. It doesn't really matter. Which raises the question, should that be keeping everyone, certainly a principal, awake at night? If nominal wealth becomes meaningless, if the number in the account does not tell you everything about real purchasing power or real freedom, what does, and here's the question, it's here in my notes. I need somewhat of a framework to follow. What does wealth actually mean? And this is where Alexander Wissner-Gross said something that I think is the most important framing that I've heard in my 20 years in the community, family offices, and working and traveling with many of the world's wealthiest families. He stated, wealth is future freedom of action, not consumption, not status, not a number on a statement. Right or wrong? I don't know, but freedom of action. The ability to do what you want when you want with the resources that are not subject to the, maybe my words here, to the permission of others. I told you this would be a long one. I haven't done quite as many solos this year and feel this has been building up a little bit. So again, grab that tea, matcha, coffee, Ovaltine, Tang, whiskey, whatever your choice. You may need it. In a world of post-scarcity abundance, keywords there, that definition of wealth does not disappear. It simply shifts. Because even if energy and intelligence become free, even if goods and services become nearly free, there will still be scarcity in certain things. He thinks those things are somewhat around control and sovereignty. Not power, maybe in the crude political sense, but who decides how the remaining scarce resources get allocated? Who decides the rules of the system? Who has sovereignty over their own life and the lives of people they care about when the old economic mechanisms that enforced hierarchy no longer function? That is a very different game than the one that most family offices are built to play. Let me make this concrete, because this is where it hits your balance sheets directly. When AI is embedded throughout the entire economy, when every major market participant has access to comparable AI capabilities, like where does alpha really come from? Think about that seriously. For most of the last century, where did alpha come from? From information asymmetry, analytical edge, the speed of execution. AI democratizes all three at the same time, simultaneously. When every family office, to some degree, every person, every hedge fund, every sovereign wealth fund runs the same models on the same data at the same speed, the edge from that analysis is gone. In public markets, traditional alpha likely approaches zero in a long time horizon. Long could be a couple of years. That is a structural shift, not a cycle. So where does intelligent, maybe I use that word loosely too, intelligent capital go? Here's something I want, again, I'll say this phrase again, to sit with you on. Not answers, sit with. You don't need to get the answers to everything because we don't know it. You have to learn how to think for yourself in first principles thinking. People ask me about the capital structure of the future. Where should families be positioned? How does an intelligent portfolio look in a post-scarcity transition? And I find myself increasingly resistant to answer the question directly. Partially because I don't think it's in my position. I don't know. But again, I break things down to the barest essence, think of first principles, cause and effect, second and third order consequences. Bring in a little bit of history and philosophy, future forward thinking, and try to get some answers. Now, it's not because I don't have views, but because I think the question, how about this? The question itself may actually be the wrong one. I think the family office world, families, advisors, consultants, allocators, you name it, have become very sophisticated at answering the wrong question with great confidence, of course. Now, let me show you a little bit from that perspective. Turn my page. Exactly what I mean. 3 years ago, the smart money said, own energy infrastructure. AI is consuming power at an extraordinary scale. Data centers are multiplying. The families closest to the energy source will be the closest to the scarce thing. And that logic made sense. And right now still does. But then someone points out that space-based solar, harvesting energy directly from the sun without atmosphere, without weather, without land constraints, it's not science fiction anymore. It's an engineering timeline, and we could debate that timeline. Look at what Elon's doing and others. If space-based solar scales, terrestrial energy infrastructure does not become worthless overnight, but the investment thesis built around its scarcity does. And I think even Alexander Wissner-Gross pointed out Dyson swarms, structures that capture a meaningful fraction of the sun's total output, are the logical endpoint of the curve that space-based solar starts. Not in our lifetimes. Well, our lifetimes may be infinite. We'll get to that soon. Probably not within 20 years. But in the lifetime or emergence of our children, at that point, what is the energy investment thesis? I admit that's not today or tomorrow, which is why you got to be tactful and move things around. And maybe in today's world, set it and forget it just may not work. I am asking the question rhetorically, sure. I am asking it because I think it is the right posture for a family office principle navigating this era. Not what is the answer, but how quickly is the answer I had yesterday becoming obsolete. I actually said something pretty profound there. Again, how quickly is the answer I had yesterday becoming obsolete? And I am structured to notice that before it matters, or what, after? The same question applies to every asset class we think we understand. Private markets feel safe because the edge could be relational, not as much analytical. AI cannot be the person a founder trusts. That is true today, but what happens when AI agents have been present in every board meeting, every negotiation, every relationship building interaction for a decade, when they have modeled every founder's psychology, every operator's decision pattern, every deal dynamic at a depth that no human advisor, it's not our fault, we're biological creatures, can match. Does the rational edge survive that? I generally don't know. There's so much more. RWA, real world assets, tokenized real assets, private monetary infrastructure built on stablecoins. These are interesting near-term, very thesis. They may be exactly right for the next 5 years. They may also be the railroad bonds of kind of an AI transition, assets that made complete sense in the moment, tied to an infrastructure layer that gets superseded by something we have not yet named. I am not saying do nothing. I am saying maybe think of something different. Not always easy in the family office world. And I understand. I am saying the most valuable thing a single family office could develop right now is not necessarily a better investment thesis. It's a better epistemology. Yeah, we're going pretty deep here. And I still have a lot to say. The capacity to hold a position with conviction today while remaining genuinely open to the possibility that the entire frame, although maybe right today, is going to be wrong tomorrow. The discipline to distinguish between what is true now and what is likely in 5 years, and what is maybe unknowable beyond that. And to not pretend that that third category belongs to the first. This is not a skill that most family offices have built, obviously, because for most of history, the rate of change was slow enough that yesterday's framework mostly worked today. And I think we're at the cusp where that's no longer true. Dr. Alexander Wissner-Gross said the system is nonlinear, and I do keep returning to that. Nonlinear means the next decade does not extrapolate so cleanly from this one. It means the thing that looks like the answer, energy, space, the space infrastructure, stablecoins, whatever the consensus lands on may be right for a window and then suddenly completely wrong, not just gradually wrong, suddenly wrong. And the families that survive are not the ones with the best allocations maybe going in. They're the ones with the most honest internal process for questioning their own assumptions in real time. So that's really somewhat of a design problem, and it's exactly the kind of problem. This is an important statement. This is exactly the kind of problem that the family office rebuilt for this era exists to solve. And I need you all to see this. Now, I want to take you somewhere. I promised I would kind of come back to this. That may make some of you feel uncomfortable. Wissner-Gross, in my interview, went there directly. I think it's the most important conversation this audience is not having. They will at my member program in Palm Beach in March. Let me start with what scientists are calling longevity escape velocity. The concept is this: once medical advances are extending human lifespan faster then time is passing. Once every year of research buys more than an additional year of healthy life, did I say that correct? The end point of that curve is not longer life, it's an indefinite one. Most of the serious scientists working in this space believe that we may reach that threshold by the 2030s. Not immortality announced with a press release, something quieter and more gradual, a compounding series of interventions in cellular synonsis, DNA repair, organ regeneration, AI designed therapeutics that together push the biological clock out further and further until the concept of a natural lifespan stops becoming a fixed number. Now, I want to say this somewhat carefully. My God, who else is talking about this in the family office world? And I'm not saying this to be dramatic. I am telling you because the entire architecture of the family office, the single family office, was built on a biological assumption that what, by the 2030s, at the most 14 years, may not hold. Every trust structure, really think about this, every succession plan, every governance framework designed to transfer authority from one generation to the next, every estate document, every conversation about preparing the next generation to take the helm, all of it assumes the, let's go with the word, the principle, think. Wealth creator, the capital, exist biologically on a timeline that we can roughly anticipate. What happens to that architecture, when the principle, and again, I'm being a little loose with that word, use your imagination, simply does not exist in the way that we're used to. So suppose that succession plan never triggers. The next generation, which has been preparing, waiting, building towards the moment, they take responsibility, waits, and keeps waiting. The governance document has no mechanism for a founder who is 95, sharp, healthy, and no intention, let's make that assumption, of stepping back. 3 generations out, if science develops as seriously as the trajectory suggests, you have a family where 4 or 5 generations are alive simultaneously. The original wealth creator, their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, all living, all with competing interest, competing timelines, competing visions of what the family stands for. These are not the conversations your so-called governance experts are having. They're not thinking like this. Maybe I am crazy. That's what they say in certain circles. How do we transmit values in the scenario that I described across the family? How do you build shared identity where the generational handoff in the traditional sense never comes? How do you give younger generations genuine agency and purpose when the founder is still in the room? No, these are not abstract questions. The families who start designing for them now, before biology forces the conversation, will have something that no amount of capital can buy later. They have time to think clearly. You do have that now. Let me go a little further. Wissner-Gross described a trajectory 3 generations out, perhaps less. I think he actually hinted at less. I'm the one being conservative, where humans are establishing a presence beyond Earth, not a Mars colony as a novelty, a genuine civilizational expansion. He mentioned, I believe, a Jupiter orbit was the specific framing. AI systems operating at scales that require energy of entire moons. Humanity as a multi-planetary, eventually multi-system. It's another scary one for many of you. Species? I know that sounds, I know how this sounds as a conversation in rooms with family offices. Trust me, I hear you. I see the comments flying in. But here's what I'm telling you. The families watching this, the ones building structures designed to potentially last 3, 4, 5 generations, are building for children who may not live in that world as it's being designed now by people who don't understand the future and have no real material thinking where it's going to go. Where material scarcity is solved, energy is abundant, and intelligence is free. Human life extends indefinitely. What gets, well, that begs the question. What gets people out of bed in the morning? Star Trek fans from the 80s, Wissner-Gross brought this up as well. Captain Picard's crew did not serve on the Enterprise for money. Money did not exist within that framing. They were there because of purpose, exploration, and contribution. The desire to be part of something larger than themselves. Now, this is not soft. It's not a soft consideration, I understand, in a post-scarcity world, but is it the only consideration that actually matters? That's a question. I'm going to begin to end this with, because I want to leave you something or somewhere real. What does the family office actually become in this new era that is not decades away? I have, because I'm me and a little different, thought about this deeply. And for now, give me the opportunity to change. Here's what I genuinely believe. The family office does not become irrelevant in a post-scarcity world. It becomes more important than it has ever been. I'm giving you executives hope here. Just for completely different reasons than it is now. Right now, we'll stay with a single family office exist. Why? Primarily to manage wealth. Let's be blunt. To preserve it, to grow it, protect it, and eventually transfer it. The primary outputs are effectively financial. The staff are mostly knowledge workers. The org chart is built around functions that AI will handle. All of that is true, and most of it is going away as currently structured. But here's what I want you to understand. The single family office is maybe the only structure in the world specifically designed to think across generations, to operate with a time horizon longer than any institution, any fund, in theory, any corporation, to serve one family's coherence and continuity. A word that is part of my membership group is called SFO continuity. That was with a purpose when I launched it 2 years ago. That continuity across the full arc of what the family is building in a world of radical economic transformation. That capability is not a relic. It's a superpower. The family office of the future is not a wealth management vehicle. It can't be. It's a sovereign family operating system. The first function of the future family office, single family office, is kind of AI sovereignty. Your family's AI infrastructure, the agents, the automation layer, the knowledge systems compounding on your data and decision history need to be owned, directed, and protected by someone who works for the family and only the family. The family that builds a proprietary AI infrastructure now has an advantage that only grows over time. And that is the architecture of the family office's job. The second function is capital architecture for the new economy, navigating the shift from traditional asset allocation to a relatively near future of tokenized real assets, private monetary infrastructure, energy ownership. Sovereign positioning requires someone thinking about it full time with your specific situation in mind. That is not a job, no, for a third party advisor with 50 other clients. That's the job for someone inside. Man, I guess I really love single family offices. That is the job of someone inside loyal to that one family and principle. The third function, yeah, I said it earlier, I'm going to throw it out there now. It's going to be longevity intelligence. The families who access the most advanced longevity science earliest, who have someone tracking the research, building the relationships with the scientists and clinics. I have someone now that is ready to do that. They're like the leading authority on that right now, actually, ensuring the principal and the family have access to what is coming before it is widely available. Those families will live longer, healthier, and become more capable. The SFO becomes the family's longevity infrastructure. Who else has ever said that to you within the family office world before? And I'm not done. The fourth function is generational meaning architecture. And this one matters most in a post-scarcity world. When the financial function is largely automated, and it just will be, when alpha has migrated to relationships and sovereignty, when the principal may live indefinitely, the SFO, single family office, most important job is helping the family answer the question that all the money never answered on its own. Yeah, I'm getting a little emotional today. It's not one of my late night reads. It's like 12 noon, so I'm wide awake and caffeined up. That is, what are we for? What values are we transmitting? What are we building towards? What does it mean to be a member of this family 3 generations from now when the world looks nothing, and I mean nothing, like it does today? No, at the moment, that is not a job for AI. That is also, in my opinion, not really a job for an external advisor. That is the most important internal function a family could have. So the hell with some of you. The single family office will continue for years to come. And the single family office is the only vehicle perfectly built and aligned to hold it. And I'm still not done. The fifth function is what I call civilizational positioning. As space opens up, as new economic systems emerge, as the rules of the old world break down and the rules of the new world are being written, the families that have structured, continuous, deeply loyal representation, thinking about where they want to stand in that emerging order, will help to shape it. And the ones who do not, you'll just be shaped by it. The single family office of the future, yes, I guess it's smaller in headcount, vastly more capable in function, and indefinitely, it's way more important in purpose. It is the structure that holds a family's sovereignty. It's AI infrastructure, it's longevity strategy, it's capital architecture, it's answer to the question of what are we actually building? This is not in any way a diminished version of what the SFO is today. Actually, it's enhanced because it is going to be different. That is the version it was really always supposed to be, without the overhead and legacy staffing of the model that surrounded it. And yes, knowledge work in legal, in accounting, and finance is going to radically change in the next 10 years. Sooner. The world that Dr. Alexander Wissner-Gross described to me is, of course, not guaranteed. These are trajectories, not certainties. The timeline and my thoughts on this, what I described today, they may be faster. They may also be slower. Here's what I've learned in my 20 years of sitting with these families at the highest levels of wealth. The families that endure, the ones still operating with coherence and purpose, 3 to 4 generations out, not the ones who planned for the most likely scenario. They are the ones who took the least likely scenarios seriously enough to build from them, to think through them. And obviously now, inevitably in the post-scarcity world, an indefinitely extended principal lifespan, as I described, an economy where the old rules of capital no longer apply, an AI infrastructure that compounds your family's on your family's behalf while you sleep 24/7, 168 hours a week. These are the most likely outcomes for next Tuesday. But they are live possibilities. Now, sure, like I said, or I meant, they are not the most likely outcomes within the next week or year or 2 years. But they are live possibilities for the lifetime of the children and the family, looking at it from a deeper perspective right now. And if you're building a wealth structure designed to endure, and why have a single family office if you're not going to be incredible and great? Those are exactly the scenarios worth designing for. This is the trajectory. Those of you that missed my interview with Dr. Alexander Wissner-Gross, it's hard to miss up on my @Family Office YouTube platform. I went a little intense there. And did my microphone get cut off? Do I have to do this again? Oh, God. I don't know if I'm going to have the same passion to do that. So, those of you live, let me know if maybe a second or two it cut off. That's a big deal. That's okay. I could live with that. But if I have to do the whole thing over, I got 2 meetings beforehand. I'll have to do it again tonight. I don't know if I could do it with the same passion. And I know I went on the edge here. I went on the edge for many of you and I know you already think I'm a little out there from my perspectives on the industry. I'm correct. You could debate my timelines, of course. This time I really pushed it. And that interview with Alexander Wissner-Gross, and he's going to be speaking in person. I can't wait to interview him at my Palm Beach Forum, March 16th. Okay, thank you. For 1 or 2 seconds, it went out. I don't got to redo this hour. That'd be, even for me, and I got a pretty big mouth, that would be not easy to do. I went out there on this one. I know directionally I'm right. Timelines, I might be off, but I'm not that far off. I actually, many of you think I don't seem to give any hope for many of you working in the family office entity in the future. Well, today I just did. And I thought about it, and I really feel confident of this. And this is why you need to be a part of my network and what I'm building. And go to angelorobles.com and get proprietary content, introductions, meet peers, and meet people like Alexander Wissner-Gross and others in person as soon as this March in my program. I have great respect for some others in the family office world, and I learn from them too. I just don't, and I travel the world. No one else is doing what I'm doing from this perspective. Again, I don't care about being likable. That ship has sailed for me a long time ago. Am I providing value that you're not getting elsewhere, and connections and peers within your community globally? I don't care where you are, that is giving you an edge and an opportunity that you wouldn't get. Now, there are some questions that did come in. Okay. More of a comment. I'm not familiar with Jeff Booth of the Piece of Tomorrow. I'll write that down. It sounds like something I should learn. Not to disagree, but healthy years have been in. Basically, someone commented, has our age or lifespan actually stabilized or decreased, including here in the US, with the exception of those that are incredibly wealthy and have access to incredible care? By the pure math, that is an accurate comment. I'm not denying that. And the things that I'm talking about are people with money and resources going to effectively get first access to. The short answer is yes. Is this going to trickle down, just like the cost for many things has come way, way down? And then coupled with that, what I said about energy and labor, yes, it is. Now, again, did I create a company because I had a utility? I had a skill that had a utility, and I put it together to create a business that made me wealthy. Why is that not something that we're cherishing, that we're looking up to, that likely employed a truckload of people and built something that provided utility and value to the world? Like, this is such a different era than when I grew up in. Like, there's such a, especially younger people having such a socialistic perspective. I don't notice that in Asia, by the way, and certain other parts of the world. In the West, there's almost like an embarrassment of successes. Now, some of you may say, Angelo, from that perspective, maybe you're right, but how about those who inherited? Like, is that their fault? Is there not some burdens to inheriting great wealth? I get it. It's not Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And again, you're talking to someone who comes from the poorest of the poor, a welfare background. I know what it's like to have skip dinners, to have eaten cereal multiple days in a row as the only food I had when I was growing up. So, like, you're talking to someone who has lived a harsh life in many ways, especially in my earlier days. And no, I would not trade that in for anything. It was a part of who I am. It gave me a world of experience and pushed me to be very driven in terms of what I do now. Deflation, technological, reading. So actually a pretty lot of comments. Could deflationary times create economic instability? Of course. Certainly so could hyperinflationary times, which is why governments and central banks would look to stabilize. And one of the ways they would certainly do that, as I described, and I really glossed over it. But again, I don't want to make this a 3-hour economic dialogue. I probably already bored many of you with what I did, let alone making it a really deep dive into that. So you're not theoretically incorrect in your comments, but I think it requires some context. And I think that about effectively wraps it up, everyone. I have a busy day in meetings. You do as well. I enjoy doing these lives. No, I do not get a chance to go back and edit and make perfect. I'm an imperfect person. I'm not using C-Dance or something else yet to recreate my videos and make them so perfect. I am a wickedly imperfect person. I'd like to hope I'm a pretty creative thinker. I think out of the box for a very vanilla industry. And I hope you're enjoying some of my content, both solo and my interviews. And I've had some great guests on this year. I've been so fortunate this early year. And I have other great guests coming on next week and the week after. And then I'll be traveling to Palm Beach to host my forum. So for about 2 weeks, there'll be a little bit of a lag. I may do one or two impromptu from Palm Beach. We may do something with Dr. Alexander Wissner-Gross that we broadcast live or clip from Palm Beach. That's exactly going to be on March 18th. And I have other incredible speakers and guests, people that have created companies out of nothing that you use every day. One person invested in 200 private companies, one the most bleeding edge using AI in their family office, 10x more than I do of anyone that I know. And then I probably have the second most person active from that perspective. And you don't think that my program, my proprietary content is going to provide value? I don't get it. I know you're jaded by your experiences of going to events that don't have proprietary knowledge or intellectual rigor and get paid speaker after paid speaker and panels fighting over each other for FaceTime. That sucks. That's terrible. I'm the complete opposite of that. Complete. So if you want to learn more, if you want to be part of something special and different within the community, deeper thinking, and very forward on geopolitical, macro investing, and obviously AI kind of underlying all of this, go to angelorobles.com and simply join and become a member. On that note, I'm making one last look through, mainly comments. And Charles, really good comments, by the way. If I had more time, we could go through them a little bit more in detail. Yeah. And no, I'm not looking for people that agree with me. Actually, my preference is smart people who could intellectually argue, maybe not the right word, think, that disagree with some of my thesis and could help me adapt my thinking. So I do not look for a consensus, although that makes many of us feel good, including me. But I fight through those weaknesses of human emotion and look for people that have value to add from a different perspective that I could learn from. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for your comments. Charles, especially you. You seem like a really smart person. I could learn a lot from you. Feel free to reach out anytime. Everyone, I'm Angelo Robles. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time.